Hi, I'm Kalyan Karmakar, and welcome to Foodocracy for Her. This is a chat series and a show which I do where I speak with women in the food and beverage world from India. And there's a reason why I do that because I feel that women are not really associated that much with this sector in food and beverage, but I've seen people doing fabulous work in various different aspects and fields in different parts of the country. And I just feel that it's important that I get an opportunity to bring you these stories because I think that all of us have a lot of inspiration to take from them, like regardless of which gender we belong to or which part of the country, class, or community. So today we've got Anurita Ghoshal. She's joining us from Mumbai. Both of us live in the same suburb of Mumbai, which is Bandra, but we are connected, of course, to a virtual interview today. And Anurita is a friend and a fabulous baker, and I think she's come into our lives maybe 3 or 4 years back when my wife Kaina's booked a birthday cake from her on my birthday. I think maybe 3 or 4 years back, and since then, like her treats and creations have been a permanent fixture in our house, including during the lockdown when we needed a lot of pick me ups, and it's been fabulous interacting with her. So today I'm going to bring you her story, and we're going to learn like a lot of exciting stuff which she's been doing. So thanks so much, Anrita, for joining.
Thank
And
you. Welcome. I'm
yes,
happy to be here.
yes, and it's also the Durga Puja week, and you do have a Bengali connection.
Yes, I do.
So your husband's Bengali, right?
Yes, he is. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yes. So
yeah.
it's
It's a
so
it's a
happy.
very different kind of a Durga Puja this year. Yeah,
I know. I mean, somehow watching things virtually and all that, when it comes to puja, doesn't cut ice because for me, you
I
have to be in
I know.
over there, like sweaty, jostled around, yelling at each other, screaming, trying to tug and get to your vogue. I mean, but that's it. I mean,
Absolutely. Yeah,
I think this is a year where we'll learn to do things differently.
absolutely. Yes,
So
absolutely.
you're someone who's
Yeah.
done things differently. Um, for people who knew you till a bit before in your previous life, or previous corporate life, knew
Yeah.
you as someone who's been in advertising, in premium sort of headhunting. Is that the term, or
That's right. That's right.
yes? And
So I
and
started.
now
Yeah.
we know you
Yeah.
as as someone who's a fabulous baker. So how did this happen?
Yeah. So, I mean, it was, I had a long, fulfilling career in advertising. And then once I had my baby, I wanted to, advertising can be quite long and arduous, especially in client servicing. So I wanted to take a bit of a break, which I did. And luckily for me, around the same time, close friends of mine also, were contemplating about doing something differently. And so what started as let's dabble in the space of HR. We all got together and we said let's just try this out, and we started recruiting in the advertising industry because we were all from there. We were well networked. What started as a one-off thing, then snowballed into a pretty large recruitment company, and we are the largest recruiters in the industry now, in the advertising
Wow.
industry. I continue to kind of be a director on the company. It is my baby, and I pretty much enjoy that as well. So that's the corporate side of me. But around about 10 years ago, actually now about 9 years ago, I think I was hitting my midlife crisis or whatever you call it, and I wanted to just sort of do something different. And I was always quite fond of cooking and baking and all of that. My brother is a pretty he's a fantastic chef, and he always inspired me. So I used to watch him, and there was a part of me that always wanted to do stuff in that direction. And then with a little encouragement from friends and family, I decided to do more than just brownies and little bakes here and there. And I also wanted to take a nice long break, so I went away to France, and I went to Paris, and I enrolled myself at Cordon Bleu, and and before I knew it, I was a classically trained French pastry chef, and I came back and I started this tiny brand called Eight. Eighth is biblically there are seven sins, but this is my eighth sin, so it's not lust or greed or gluttony, but it's a bit of everything. And so we started Eighth, and
Hmm.
I started very small, and I really think that that was the joy of it. Sort of came from there because I did what I wanted to do. I was still recruiting. I was still attached to the advertising industry, which still continues to be. I'm still passionate about that space, and I was baking, and I met very interesting chefs, and along the way, I kind of people appreciated my food, and then one thing led to the other, and we started receiving more than the regular orders. I started people wanted to consult, use me for menu consulting, and it just sort of snowballed. And now I think, I've kind of created a space for myself, which is still very small, and I'm okay with that. Okay, and I still continue to do the things that I enjoy doing. My bakes are not. They're not. They're all the things that I want to eat myself. And and while I really admire the great work of some of the great chefs, who do, very delicate, beautiful stuff. I think I've created a little niche for myself, which is more old-fashioned, more rustic, more, more decadent. So yeah, that's where I am right now.
Well, I think that exactly sums up the way I see your products, and I've been dying to crack this food pun when you started speaking. So
Yes.
for you, it's been one form of cherry picking into another form of cherry picking. Sorry, I had to. So
Yeah.
let me tell you, Anurita, like a few days back, I was doing a workshop for home chefs on the Booker workshop in platform, and there was this young lady who was in the corporate world in Mumbai. She's moved back to Hyderabad, and she wants to get into baking. I mean, she already bakes. She started that, and we were discussing how to build a brand. And so she said that for her, what excites her the most are the flavors. She loves playing around with flavors when she
Yeah.
bakes and all that.
Yeah.
And she doesn't. It's not so much about the presentation which matters to her. I mean, of
Yeah.
course, she looks at that, but
Yeah.
for her, the
Yeah.
focus is flavor. And she was wondering that whether that's a bit of a drawback when she sees the very nicely presented bakes. And I actually gave her your example.
Yeah.
So I actually did. I said that, there's Anurita Ghoshal, and I think between my wife and me, we probably sort of keep calling in stuff from you. I think every week
Yeah.
or sending it to people.
Yeah.
And we're very clear that it's about what we're consuming is the taste. Of course, it's
Yeah.
also aesthetics when you're looking at it.
Yeah.
It's very elegant aromas and all that, but you're not looking at bells and whistles over there.
Yes, absolutely. I'm not kind of ashamed, because it is actually a very conscious, it's a pretty conscious way I've moved forward, because even going forward, if everything goes as per plan, and if I were to, eventually at some point have a cafe, it would still not have the very delicate French entremets that get presented in, at Angelina in France.
Yes.
It's going to be more, cafe style. It's going to be more rustic. It's going to have more wholesome stuff, big savories, pies, and old fashioned chocolate cakes, and all of that. But that's just a reflection of the kind of person that I am, and the kind of food that I have enjoyed growing up and eating. This whole bit about slow cooked food, and that really resonates with me, and that's pretty much what I try and do even in my bakes. Yeah.
In fact, talking of Angelina and old fashioned, I
Yeah.
mean, and if you see the queues outside the cafe,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that 98% of them who are queuing up, including us, was for that hot chocolate, which is
For the
as old
hot
fashioned
chocolate,
as it.
I agree.
Yes, so I mean, I
Absolutely.
mean, we didn't even look at the other stuff. I mean, with the sort of budget we had, we
Absolutely.
didn't even look at the other things around. But I
Absolutely.
really love what you said right now, which is doing things the way you see it. I mean, that's something which I relate to as a writer, content creator, or like for example, we also did a workshop on Instagram, and I said that for me, I present the food the way I see it, rather than the way I want the world to see it. So there are different styles of food photography. So
Yeah.
the ones, especially the ones more professional, there are a lot of props used.
Yeah.
And they make it like a Renaissance painting,
Yeah.
and I really
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
But that's not how I look at food. So for example, if I'm looking at a plate of, say, puri bhaji,
Yeah.
and then if I see that it's kept on a newspaper, and a slight distance, there are maybe some porcelain dolls and maybe some uh, crayons kept over there, and you're trying to build a story. In my head, the only thing which is going on is that the puris are going cold, and I can't put it in the
Yeah,
microwave and
yeah,
eat it.
yeah.
So it's
Like
a
if
personal
I were
call.
to give you, if you, yeah, like if I were to give you an example, like, you know, tempering chocolate is quite a technique, right? I mean, like, you know, you need the environment to be cold, and, you know, you raise the temperature of the chocolate, you bring
Yeah.
it down, you raise it again, and only then, you know, you have that perfect crisp, right? So I do all of that. I do all of that, and then I throw the chocolate on my table, okay, and then I just make shards out of it, right?
Hmm.
And sometimes I wonder that I've taken all that trouble, okay, got that perfect chocolate, okay, got it down the right temperature, and I'm just kind of making shards, okay. Whereas another chef probably would have rolled it and made feathers out of it and petals out of it, and, you know, all of that. And so it's not like, but it's out of choice, you know. I'm saying that, you know, it's not like we don't use the techniques. We still
Hmm.
follow the same, you
Oh
know,
yes.
you know,
Oh
the things
yes.
that you need to. But I think it's a choice of, you know, if the chocolate needs to be used in a presentation, I would rather work with the old fashioned shards. You know, if I have to make it prettier, then I would rather rely on fresh fruit. If I
Hmm.
want to make it prettier still, and then I will use edible flowers. But it's pretty much in that zone. And, you know, whether I'm making eclairs or whether I'm making chocolate cakes, or whether I'm making a cheesecake, I think that sort of just sort of carries through. You know, that's the it sort of resonates with me, and I put that out there. Then, you
In fact, the word "pretty" which you use right now is so subjective, right? Because my wife and I, we both love desserts, and
know,
uh, and frankly, if I take the opposite of pretty as being ugly, I don't think we've
yeah,
ever seen anything which is ugly or not pretty from you.
yeah.
So I think even pretty is, I
Yeah,
mean,
it is.
uh,
It's really very, very subjective. Absolutely.
you know, the
Absolutely.
classical French way of presenting a dessert
Yeah.
versus the quirky Japanese ways of presenting it would be very different.
I mean, you know, I took my same, the way I presented a cheesecake at, had from my kitchen versus the way I presented the same cheesecake at an Unamas when we were launching and doing
Yeah.
their anniversary. They were completely different. That same cheesecake looked entirely differently when I caramelized figs and put that on top, and, you know,
Hmm.
had shards of herbs around it, and, you know, you splash a little bit more of color. So it just, the way you present can change, but I think the food still needs to remain wholesome, and I do not
Yes.
disagree, because I think people look at food and then decide to eat it. So I understand the need to make it look very pretty, and we all must strive to do, you know, the best. But I think without ever losing from the main thing, which is the flavors, the ingredients, you know, and all of that. I think that's really the story. And I think chefs get judged by their product and not by the way their food necessarily looks all the time. So that's really personally my point of view. But yeah,
No, well, as someone who loves food, I mean, I completely agree. Because, like I said,
yeah,
one is prettiness is subjective, and two is even internationally. From what I understand, the other day we were attending a talk by an Israeli chef who's like traveled across the world and done a TV series covering three Michelin-starred restaurants across the world, which is
mm,
2 years back.
mm,
But he said that now the movement globally is towards uh, more classic, rustic, old-fashioned,
yeah,
you know, closer to the essence of it sort of food,
yeah,
which is being presented.
yeah,
So now I want to ask you a question which sort of um, pinches on both your experience as a baker as well as someone who's been a top industry recruiter. You know, and you yourself said that you faced a bit of a burnout at one point and you started something new. So a question which people often have, and even I had, because even I went through a mid-career crisis when I was in market research, and then took a sabbatical, then got into food writing. So when people make this transition or when they start anew, then they look at what people are doing, what are the trends, what are the best practices, and then what they want to do. And sometimes they feel a bit overwhelmed,
yeah.
especially in something like baking, because when you see you know, the top bakers and what they're doing, and then you wonder that, so what do you think about people who want to sort of hold out from the trend and create their own niche? Is that, does it make sense from a business point of view, or is it okay if you're a hobby person? What has your
I mean,
experience been?
I think that everybody must follow their passion. That's one. Okay, so if you're passionate about something and you want to, want to grow in that space, then I think that it's great that you do that. But I think passion needs to translate into some kind of money, okay, at some
Hmm.
point, because you're going to you'll only be able to build further from there if you see some rewards back in return, right?
Hmm.
So I think that I think you need to keep that in mind. And I think the transition period it can be a bit challenging, but I think that I've always told myself to not get overwhelmed. It's very easy for
Yes.
me to want to be. I love the work of some of the Indian chefs. Okay, I love Pooja's work. I love Sanjana's work. I would love to be like them, and I would love to and all of that. But the point is, I think that I'm very well aware of the steps that I'm taking, and I've transitioned very very slowly. So I mean, I may at some point get there, or I may carve a completely different space for myself. So I think that I would always tell people not to get overwhelmed, and I think you should take inspiration from people, but I think you should not get defeated by looking at at how you shouldn't get overwhelmed by other people's successes or the kind of work that they're doing, because I think each of them have taken a very very long journey themselves. What we see outside is just one thing, right? I mean, everyone's gone through, every chef knows how they've burned themselves in the kitchen before they become what they become. So I think I think we need to I think it's okay to take baby steps and try and build the things the way you want to see it, the way you've seen it, you've imagined it for yourself. Yeah.
That's so true. In fact, we spoke with Pooja some time back, and
Yeah. Yeah.
she showed us that how it's not always been as rosy as
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
been, and
Yeah.
it is pretty overwhelming. So, for example, as a writer, there are times when I see people doing things which are different, or something which you are then wondering that should you take the same track, should you replicate that, but then you try to pull yourself back to the prime point, so to speak, or what you want to do, and
Yeah.
keep one going over there.
Yeah.
So yeah, so
Absolutely.
we've lost your video.
Hello.
Yeah, got it back.
Yeah.
Got it
Yeah.
back.
Got it back. Got it back.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
There's Zoom
Yeah.
interview itself is such an example, right? Because I mean, this Foodocracy for Her series before the
Yeah.
pandemic happened, I
Yeah.
thought of it as something which would be a studio shot or does that. So I'd approach direct producers, channels, is that, or even a publisher for a book idea. But for whatever reason, it didn't work. And that's the way one thought of doing it. But now the pandemic is pushing one to sort of do it the way you can. And so, okay, there could be a little, moment where the video might disappear, this, that, whatever. But you can do what you want to at your heart's content. So tell
That
me,
sounds. Yeah.
I can hear you now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. So I like the word which you use, which is overwhelming, and especially as an entrepreneur, you're not now a part of an agency or anything like that. So how
Yeah.
do you keep yourself going when you feel overwhelmed? At various points. What is it that keeps you rooted?
Um, yeah, there have been many a time, Kalyan. I mean, the pandemic has, I think, brought out so much of. I didn't even know that I was so resilient. Okay, so when the pandemic hit us, I think just a couple of days I took a bit of a, oh my God, it's great, it's a break, okay, and I looked at it like that. But then I realized that, oh my God, this is a long haul, okay, and I said that,
Hmm.
and by now in my baking studio, I had a staff of 4 or 5 people, and I mean, I've always been a hands-on chef, but there was a fair bit of work that they were doing. Okay, so I was coming in and I was looking at it, from superficially and looking at stuff. But they were doing a large bit of the work, and suddenly I was all alone, and there was nobody. There was no part-time help. There was nobody, and I realized
Yes.
that I've got to do all of this by myself. Okay, and I I have actually surprised myself at and I've surprised myself, and I think that what the pandemic has done is that it has made me fall in love with baking all over again, because I've done it all myself, and the joy that I experienced using my own two hands to create food, to make it look pretty, to book a fast, and make sure that it reaches the client on time. I've done everything, okay, and I'm actually very pleasantly surprised, and I'm actually quite happy about this experience. Okay, not that I wanted to stay, and not that I mean, we all know the what the economy has sort of
Yes.
hit, but I'm just trying to say that I think that we're capable of a lot more, and I think we need to sort of go inwards and rely on ourselves a lot more, and put ourselves out there. And I think that all of us have it in us. I think all of us have it in us, and the idea is to keep innovating. The idea is to keep at it, and overwhelming as it was at various points in time,
Yes.
I think that I just kept myself going because it was just something that I began to really enjoy all over again. Okay, so I'd get physically tired, but I think that you take a day's break, and then I'm joyfully back at it all over again. So it's, yeah, I mean, I found my way of pulling myself out of the physical exhaustion, and found myself going back to baking again and again. Yeah.
I can so relate to that because, like you said, I mean, the pandemic has been a bit of a switch back or a restart. So for me, it was falling in love with blogging again because, before
Yeah.
this, I was doing other stuff and I didn't really have that much time for my blog, which was once my daily diary. So I do that now on Instagram. And,
Yeah.
and blog would be like once a week or once a fortnight and one long, impactful piece or something like that. But this thing of writing every day and, recording one's life in one's blog has been this thing. And I remember like soon after the pandemic, I don't know whether I saw it on your page or something, but I saw that you'd started doing deliveries, and
Yeah.
I then checked out with you because those are such bleak times. I mean, like you
Yeah.
said, cut off from everything, the anxiousness,
Yeah.
different way of living, no house help, no this thing, and the sheer exhaustion. I'm talking from the customer side in this case,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
wanted something to cheer you up. So then we started seeing, for example, Aditi Handa, who runs Baker's Dozen. So they opened
Yeah.
up, and we spoke
Yeah.
to her earlier in Foodocracy for her. And so
Yeah.
we'd go to the shop and buy stuff or doing it in.
Yeah.
Then Village Shop where Jennifer was open. So we
Yes. Yes.
this thing and we all depended on so much on what you got for us or sent us. But I
Yeah.
was seeing that at any point, if I'd reach out to you, because for you it's a customized menu, so to speak,
Yeah.
unlike say
Yes.
Baker's
Yeah.
Dozen or
Yeah.
Village Shop, which is
Yeah.
off the counter. And I say,
Yeah.
okay, hey, can you make this? Can you make that? Can you make this? And sometimes there've been times where I know Kenaz, my wife, has reached out to you one evening saying that can you have some cookies because there's someone coming over. And I
Yeah.
don't think there's ever been a time where you've said no. And it's always been the same quality as pre-pandemic, if not better. And sometimes we used to wonder because what you do is so complex. And it's not standardized. It's not that you know that in a
Yeah.
day you'll do 20 of those.
Yeah.
So one used to marvel at how you do it.
No, I mean, no, I mean, I'll be very honest. I have said no to a few people when it just got too much. Okay, but I think that also the pandemic, like I said earlier, the joy of baking, it's reinstated that very clearly. And also, I think that it's also taught me time management in such a big way because from a large home staff to a large staff at the studio to a driver to everything that we're all so comfortably used to, there was nothing and no one,
Yes.
right? So there I was saying that I need to keep the brand alive, and the only way to keep a brand alive is not by is by actually baking. Okay, it's by actually
Hmm.
people eating and then maybe posting about it or taking it to someone's house and somebody else orders. Because the scale that I am, when you do not have a retail front, I think that word of mouth becomes the only way the brand sort of sustains. Okay, so it was very important. I was very clear that I wanted to do this, but I knew that I was alone. Okay, and I think it taught me a very very important lesson, and that of time management. Okay, so
Hmm.
if somebody wanted cookies, the only reason I could do that is because I had made a batch of cookie dough. which was done at a time while I was watching Netflix. So I learned how to manage
Wow.
my time and prep, and I mean, and prep in a big way. I've done, I've done a fair bit of work in the pandemic, and I think that was only possible
Yes.
because I think I was prepared. I was actually prepared to work with that. Now I think I've become a lot more conscious because we don't want wastages, we don't want
Mm.
any of that. So we're taking pre-orders on some of the things that I do for the weekends and stuff. So it's become a lot more structured because now I've come to accept that till the vaccine is not out there, this is the way it's going to be. So we just gearing up in a more formal manner to take this ahead. Yeah.
One thing which I feel, which has worked a lot for home chefs. I know you're not a home chef, but you're also
Yeah.
someone who works out of your
Yes.
kitchen
Yeah.
or
My
studio.
home kitchen. Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
you've
Yeah.
actually become a home chef doing this thing. Like Riyamita Dalal was telling us last week that they earlier had their catering kitchen, but now
Yeah.
she's opened Katie's Kitchen again from their home. So, it's a
Yeah.
lot of chefs
Yeah.
becoming home chefs again.
Yeah.
But I also feel that the horizon has expanded. Like you spoke about Be Fast or Swiggy Genie or whatever. So
Yeah.
suddenly, earlier you were dependent on, okay, within a particular area, who's available, who's
Yeah.
not. Now things
Yeah.
are going
Absolutely.
everywhere. Like
Yes.
this morning,
I
someone
mean,
asked me for who's doing puja, Durga Puja food in Bandra. I said, it doesn't matter because I
yeah,
told him
it's
about
available.
few chefs and the food comes from wherever.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I actually delivered. VFast actually took a cake to Kalyan, and I'm like, really? Are you see Kalyan as in Kalyan the place, not you,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes.
So I'm like, the footprint has become large. I've had an audience that has been asking for my cakes from South Bombay for such a long time, and now they all have it. They all have it
Yeah,
because
so we sent your cake to my Masi-in-law in Kaf Parade, mom-in-law in
yes,
Dadar,
yes,
mama-in-law in Bhayandar.
yes,
So yeah,
yes.
it's
There
South
you go.
Central, Bhayandar
Absolutely.
is North, everywhere.
Yeah.
No,
So
if I
many
take a
good things. Yeah, many good
yeah,
things have come out of the pandemic, I think. Yeah,
absolutely, absolutely.
yeah.
And I think that that's how we need to see it. And I don't know, do you also feel that the business, the economy is turning around a bit in terms of, I mean, that's what I'm seeing as a writer, content creator, that
Yeah.
there's now work opportunities opening up, things like that. Do you see a bit of that happening?
I think, I mean,
Is
I
the
can
business
I can
picking up?
speak. I think so. I mean, I can speak from the corporate angle as well,
Hmm.
okay, and as well as from the food
Yeah.
business. I think people are beginning to kind of trust, that people in the other kitchens are being very careful. So I think that they're ordering in food a lot more than they did at the start of the
Yes.
pandemic. That's one. And secondly, I think from like from the corporate space, because we're so sort of in touch
Yes.
with at least the advertising, the media, and the content
Hmm.
industry, we're seeing, we're beginning to hear murmurs from the HR over there, about looking at hiring,
Hmm.
beginning
Hmm.
all over again. So I think the sentiment is changing, and I think that, I mean, from all the conversations that I have with the CFOs and the CEOs of of agencies, etc. I think I hear them say that we're just waiting for the next 3 months to pass. We're just looking at the new year, and everything will be. So there's a lot of hope that is pegged on 2021, and
Yes.
I think people are just I think they've come to terms with the fact that they're just going to let some time go, and things will sort of smoothen up and change for the better, and they're already moving in that direction.
No, I think that's an important message, and that's why I wanted to hear it from you,
Yeah.
because I know, and this thing that there's so many people who are struggling out there, with the lack
Yeah.
of work or
Yeah,
responsibilities or
absolutely.
ill health,
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
almost are like, you know, they feel that it's almost like there's no way ahead.
Yeah.
It's important to know that this turnaround is happening.
I think the turnaround is happening, and I think that that's coming really. I mean, like I can speak for myself. Like my home, my husband and I, we're like you guys. We order in a lot. Okay, and I think the first 3 months, I just cooked. We did not order. We just did not want to take a chance. We didn't do anything. Okay, in fact, every time I wanted to do it, he was the one who said no, and he's the one who only eats, barely eats at home. But I think in the last 2 months, I'm like seeing a change. I think everyone is easing up. We've begun ordering in. We haven't started going out to restaurants as yet, although they have opened. That hasn't sort of happened. But I think we'll get there. I think we'll get there because I think people are. They are all following protocols. I think as long as we follow the protocols, okay, I think we'll be safe. And I think that I think this will pass. I think it's already moving in that, definitely moving in that direction.
I agree with you, because when it came to ordering in towards the beginning of the pandemic, there
Yeah,
were people who wouldn't at all. Then some of
yeah,
us would order only from
yeah,
people we knew, like for example,
yeah,
from you or say
yeah,
Khane Khas, because we know the
yeah,
people. But now,
yeah,
so
yeah,
so maybe eating out for us also, we are right now a bit circumspect, especially in
yeah,
Mumbai. But
yeah,
I think maybe that's also going to change, because I'm sure that everyone's also going to keep their protocols and. uh,
yeah,
so now
yeah,
I want to
absolutely.
completely change track from the pandemic a bit,
Yeah,
to speak to you as someone who's shifted careers, and of course you straddle both. But from your corporate career, where you'd reached, a certain stature, you're a director of your own company, even in agency, you're at this thing, to starting completely afresh, and you
yeah,
actually had to train yourself in something
yeah,
new. When you started, you were probably even less important than a management trainee would have been in the world of baking.
absolutely,
You didn't
absolutely,
have a team, you didn't have bachas. So
absolutely.
how was that intimidating? Was that, because for me it was like moving from my corporate research job to food writing, and where I didn't really have a plan for the first year or so. It didn't. It left me a bit unsettled, to put it
Listen, I
politely.
put myself in a French school. The French are the most intimidating. They really are. You know, they
Yes.
that's the way they are, right? And I was, I was with them. I did not know. I still don't know how to speak French. Okay, luckily we had great interpreters in school, but the fact of the matter is that I put myself in a very very alien environment, not an environment that I was friendly with. That I was familiar with. So it's one thing to bake brownies at home, but it's quite another thing to be in a Cordon Bleu kitchen in France, right? And as a novice, when you get there, you are joined. The person next to you working on your workstation is probably a chef who's worked for 15 years somewhere in a European kitchen and is now upgrading his skills. Um, so yes, it was very very intimidating. But I think that if you trust yourself, and I think that's the thing about academics, and that's the thing about education. I think that when you determine to learn, okay, and you put yourself out there, you will pick that skill. You will slowly but surely start building that confidence in yourself, and you'll get over that. Then the way I started feeling in the first module was very different. The way I felt when I did my intermediate was very different. By the time I did my superior pastry, I think I was as confident as anybody could be, because I had worked for 3 years in between, and I knew my craft, and it was okay. So I think that intimidating it was, but I think that you can, if you continue at it, if you persist quite single-mindedly, I think you can get over those feelings. Yeah. So I mean, for all of those people who are kind of transiting, making that transition into new careers, I think that they should just be at it. I think there's no other way. I think there is no shortcuts to hard work. I think, and that's the one thing as a chef. I mean, I don't know why people choose to become chefs. I think it's, I mean, I don't get it, but I think it is a very strange kind of a addiction. Okay, the kitchen is a really addictive place. So people who are transitioning careers, I mean, I think that passion needs to be the reason why they're that needs to be the single reason why they're making that change. Because otherwise, if you are not passionate about something, then the effort becomes very arduous. Then everything starts feeling very very like it becomes larger than life. So I think if you put your heart into it, then you should just go all out. Yeah.
That's a very important point you made, which is about putting in the heart, or the passion, because every field would be different. Like in the case of baking, you went to a top school and not just any school,
Yeah.
but you, like, one could say that, okay, you go through a training process. For writers, there's not necessarily a
Yeah.
training process, though. During the pandemic, a lot started. Like for example, what Kuruj Dalal was doing with his
Yeah.
writing courses, which he took online. and various other opportunities and all which were coming up. But then there's one part of getting skilled, but the other part is that of setting up the business and
Yeah,
figuring out, okay, will you get orders? Will you get orders the next day? How many? This, that. So that itself would have been a different sort of challenge,
yeah,
right? Setting up
yeah,
business.
yeah, absolutely. So, there's always a, do I want the best equipment, or do I make do with, with the basic stuff? So there's nothing wrong with the basic stuff. You can bake out of OTG ovens and all of that. But I started, and when I started, I bought an oven for 1.5 lakhs when I started. Like, I did not enter. I entered with it. I was pretty confident because I had come from a school which made me feel very confident about my skill. So I was very confident that I would be able to make use of this equipment, and a fairly, and it's amazing that piece of machinery lasted me for 7 years. And in the pandemic, I've actually bought myself another bigger, better oven in the middle of the pandemic, because I've just, said, what, I love this, and this is what I want to do, and I'm very clear about it. So I'm just going to build it. Um, so yeah, I mean, I know that it's very challenging to put all your eggs in one basket and to invest money. But I think again it comes down to that one thing, that if you are sure that this is what you want to do, then I think make that investment in yourself. Okay, whether it is about going to a school, whether it is about interning with another chef or another writer, or whatever it is that you want to do. And investment is not just about buying expensive equipment,
Hmm.
or investment is investment in terms of the time, and all of that. Like, when I moved back, Kalyan, to my studio a few days ago, because it was just getting too much, and I have a little dog in the house who decided to suddenly shed hair. And
Oh,
the last thing I wanted was, I don't want hair in my cakes, right? And
yes,
I
yes.
I was beginning to, and it was a clear decision that the time has come, that I don't want to uproot my puppy. I love him too much, but I need to uproot myself. I know I was very comfortable at home, but move back to the studio. So I took that decision, and and here I am. And as I was packing, I thought that I had not packed everything. I'd just taken a little bit of stuff home, but that little bit of stuff was actually 10 cartons, because every time I needed something, I came back to the studio, I took that, and I went back home. And I realized that in the last 7 years, I have gathered so much of stuff, not stuff. It ranges from, like, I think I have probably every pastry book, okay, that I wanted to have. So I think these are all investments that you make, in time, and nothing is wasted, okay. And so I feel you should, if it is something that you feel very strongly about, I think invest in it, invest your time in it, invest your mind in it, and keep thinking about it till it becomes a reality, till it becomes something that, that you dreamed of,
So
So
your
yeah.
words resonated so much with me because we have this gentleman who's a financial planner, and
Mm,
and he's been working with us for a few years. A very very nice person, very grounded. He works a lot with the advertising industry, and that's how we
mm,
know him. So I was once sitting with him at home and one on one, and I was telling him that how I feel a bit pressurized, that I feel that I should be maybe making more money out of my work and this that, and comparing it with what I was doing before, and it was very heart to heart chat. And also we are a two people person, and the other person is of course a very successful corporate, and and I was so having that bit of an imposter syndrome, and am I doing enough? So he put it in a very clear manner to me, and exactly what you said. He said that look at the next 2 years, which was maybe a year back, as a period where you're investing yourself, you're investing in your career. So he said for me, what he understood of my work, his idea of investment would be that if I took off and made these trips across India by myself, so not depending on a fan trip or something like that, but getting to acquaint myself more with the food across, because he said that all of that's going to build into your learning, understanding of food, then developing a brand, and then things will take off. And then
yeah,
I made my trip to Surat, Mysore, Guwahati, Jamshedpur, all of that. And then I was thinking that, hey, I mean, when we were in college and we were doing our MBA and all that, there were those examples of Pepsi coming into India and the CEO saying that we are looking at 7 years before making any money. So,
Money.
if
Yeah.
corporates, I mean, of course, they would have their cash reserves, but it's okay. I mean, to be honest, it's not that we also dependent on the money for the next stint. I mean, if you're, you just need to sort of see where you are.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And not everything, Kalyan, is about, I mean, of course, money is very important. We know it, okay? But not everything that you do needs to be all about the money. I think the money is a byproduct, okay? It's a byproduct. It will come. If the work that you create is good, I think the money will come. There's no other way, you know? So I think, like, I think you have to just put your mind to it and just keep doing what you strongly believe in. And, all of these things, like in Buddhism, you say, right? You just do your thing and the benefits will follow. Like, I think you keep the larger goal in mind, and then everything else just, always is a byproduct, and that will follow, So I pretty much follow that rule for everything that I do.
Yeah, and that's something which I think kept one anchored during the pandemic.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Now, it was International Chef's Day a few days back.
Yeah.
And I saw that you'd written a very heartfelt post on Instagram about what being a chef means to you. And I would want you to sort of tell that to us as well, because see, you're not a born chef. You did not start with IHM and right from the beginning. So you made a transition after a successful career.
Okay.
So what does being a chef mean to you?
And
you're so happy when you wrote that.
No, I mean, I'm so proud. Like I wrote in that post, I'm like, I think that day I will never remember. I will never forget that day. That day when we were all given our chef hats. Okay, and it's a very conscious thing. Like I said, I had broken my diploma into 3 different parts. Okay, because I couldn't take a year off at a stretch. I had a baby at home, and I didn't want to leave home for that period. So when I did just one module, okay, and I came back, I never called myself a chef. I never said, I just called myself a pastry student. When I did the second module, I still didn't call myself a chef. I wanted to be a chef, but I wasn't a chef. I called myself a chef and a trained pastry chef only when I received that hat. And I think I'm so glad that I did that, because I had witnessed my brother for 20 years in the kitchen, and I know what he went through, and I know how hard the life of a chef is. So, doing a 3-month course in France and coming back and calling yourself chef didn't feel right. Something did not feel right. I did an internship in a 1 Michelin star restaurant in Barcelona, and when I went there for the first time, on day 1 they only made me take the rind off 100 lemons, okay, till my hands bled. Okay, I just kept taking the rind off, and that was the only job. One day they just made me pluck mint leaves, okay, just the perfect mint leaves from the garden, and that was the only thing I did. And I realized that I think that everything that it's like, I think another parallel example would be that of an account executive. I believe that everybody should be an account executive in an agency, because the way you get pushed around to do everything, okay, you just become a fine young person, at the end of, being that person. And I think it's very similar analogy would be, when you work in a kitchen, I think you do everything from the cleaning, my hands burned under melting, creating sugar flowers. I when I cut my hand, the chef yelled at me for being negligent and bruising myself. Okay, when my uniform was dirty, I was told that you cannot be. You need to be hygienic. Okay, so many lessons taught in so many different hard ways that I think chefs are not just people who can create food. I think chefs are symbolic of a very, very hard and a long journey that they have gone through. To be able to call themselves that. So I'm not saying that the other professions people don't work that hard. It's challenging in every way. But I think that I put that post out there because I was very proud of the fact that when I went there at 40, alongside young 24-year-olds, I was able to stand shoulder to shoulder and work at that same pace. Sometimes, even now, I surprise myself. Okay, I surprise myself at the number of hours I can stand and continuously work. I think it makes you so resilient. I think it makes you so so strong, and I think it just makes you a very, very brutally honest, and a very, very um, I mean, a very strong-headed person. I think being a chef. So I'm very happy to, very happy to be one. Very, very happy to be one. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that everything which you said right now, it came through in that post. And one of the people I interviewed earlier on in the series, Marina Balakrishnan, that
Yeah.
who's that
Yeah.
Chalasai
Yeah.
girl, and Utapura.
Yeah. Yeah.
So she, at the age of 50, went to New York to
Yeah.
learn
Yeah.
how to be
Yeah.
a chef.
Yeah, and then she went to GA, and she was
Yeah,
there, training.
yeah.
So I mean, hats off to such. I mean, hats off to
I
Marina.
get
I really
tired listening
appreciate.
to you guys. I can't put things that. I mean, the most I can do is photograph food and eat it. But no, but jokes apart. So when I was reading these posts, the analogy which came to my mind, because sometimes I wondered, because I'm also like admire the work of a lot of home chefs and self-taught entrepreneurs and all that. But the analogy which came to my mind is like that of a doctor. Like
Mm,
a lot of us know what to take if you have fever, this, that, and stuff. But my father was a doctor. So the
mm,
fact of the matter is that you've gone through a rigorous training to be a doctor. Then you've either started off as a junior house surgeon or your independent practice where there was no one, to a level where you're either like a senior consultant or running the hospital or things like that. So it's I mean, the person has gone through all of that, and it's the same as what one could call a professional chef who's gone to
yeah,
chefing school. And so
yeah,
I think it's important to acknowledge that.
yeah.
And
And it was just my way of telling myself, after an arduous 8 months of consistently working for long hours, that I'm happy with what I am. I mean, I'm happy I'm here. So it was just one of those days where I wrote it all out. Yeah.
how does it feel to be a pastry chef? Because a pastry is not something which you eat as dal chawal or bread butter. I mean, a
Hmm.
pastry
Hmm.
has a certain significance,
Hmm.
and that's in fact what I started my interview with Pooja with.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
But how does it feel to be a pastry chef of all sorts of chefs? You could have been anything else, but you're a pastry chef. So how does it feel?
I, I mean, I love food as well. Okay, to be very honest. Okay, I love. It's not. I don't put it out there, but I cook a lot. I cook a lot, and one fine day I might actually just go back and go to France and and train myself in that space as well, to just be to know it all. Okay, but I think being a pastry chef is very joyful, because you know what? At the end of the day, I don't know whether it is because sugar is addictive, or whatever you might call it. I think a cake puts a huge smile on people's face. It
Yes,
just, I mean, it is. I mean, there is nothing to it. Okay, there's just
true.
nothing to it. And nothing can beat that. Okay. So I think I feel good about being a person, who can sort of make people happy. Okay, through food. But I also think that it's also, and a lot of chefs now recognize the fact that I think that while we are creating delicious food, I think that we also have that responsibility about making it making it a tad bit healthier, so that
Yes,
it can really bring true joy, okay, in every way. Okay, not only is it great to taste, but it's also not so bad for you, so I think that I love this space, because I think that I will at some point, okay, transition into that, that going ahead, where I'll be able to create a balance of good food, as well as food that's really truly good for you, in that space. So it's a very exciting time for me to be a pastry chef right now, because I think that that's the space that I'm actually wanting to move towards, not just, yeah, yeah,
yeah, and we've ordered sugar-free things from you,
yeah,
keto cakes,
yeah,
brownies,
yeah,
and all
yeah.
that, and to our friends who've had serious health issues,
Health issues, yeah,
and when they're having it, they don't feel that it's a compromise cake,
yeah, yeah.
a
Then,
compromise.
and that's the idea. And I think, Kalyan, right now we're at a point, earlier ingredients were not available to us, and now we have so many alternate flours that we work with, so many different kind of sweeteners that we work with. So it's actually, and stuff that is really healthy. It shocks me how banana flour can translate into a beautiful cake,
Yes.
or or how rice flour is just as healthy. So I
Mm.
think that um I'm working to create a line of products which will generally will just be good for you, not just make you, feel happy because you're eating it, but actually just be good for you as you nourish you, in fact, so yeah, it's great to be able to do that. Yeah.
So I've got a couple of questions before we sign off. So
Yeah.
one is since, in fact, you spoke about ingredients, and I was just going to ask you
Mm.
about that.
Yeah.
That to do the quality of pastry which you do, which is like really international class, is not cheap. Like the ingredients and
Yeah.
all that.
Yeah.
Like no
Yeah.
matter like the core
Yeah.
ingredients come at a certain price.
Yeah. Yeah.
So people who are in the industry or want to join in, sometimes they might feel that, is there a market for this? Because no matter what I do, this is my fixed cost. So what has
Yes.
been your experience or any advice you have to people as to how to command the value for what they're doing? You know?
I okay. So this has always been. I've had a very, very like a clear stand from day one, and I really think that you are as good as the ingredients that you use. Okay, and the
Mm,
minute a chef compromises on that, I think that it will show. So
mm,
I always believe that that and I mean, I charge what I charge for my cakes. Okay, but there are enough and more people uh, who buy into that, okay, because they like what they eat, okay. So
exactly.
there will always be a market for good food. There always will be, so if that wasn't the case, then the Michelin star restaurants, or people all over the, like pastries that sell for 11 euros a piece would not sell,
Mm,
okay. But I think it's got everything to do with it. What vanilla you use, what chocolate you use. I think that's going to determine, the quality of your product. And I think the second you compromise that, you've lost. I don't believe that I ever want to be a person who worried about money and therefore, I scale down. Yes, of course, there are sometimes when we have large corporate orders where we need to look at the bottom line, and of course then you make a choice, like, are you going to use a chocolate that's going to cost you 780 rupees a kilo, or are you going to use a chocolate that's going to cost you 550 rupees a kilo? But yes, you will still use chocolate. You're not going to use a compound, right? So
mm,
I'm saying that there's a big I think I think we all have to be very, very. I mean, if there's one thing that I always tell anybody who comes in for like a class or something with me, that the ingredient piece has to be a sacrosanct. You cannot
mm,
compromise on that. Use, and you don't have to spend money buying international ingredients. I think India has got plenty.
mm.
We have great vanilla. We have great chocolate. We have
Yes.
we have it all. But I think that no shortcuts on that front, yeah, Kalyan. That I'm very, very, very clear about. No shortcuts there. Yeah.
And what you said is true, right? I mean, there's a lot of like vanilla from Kerala. Yeah, the
Yeah.
chocolate which is coming from
Yeah.
again Karnataka,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
using local fruits,
Yeah.
which the French
Yeah.
are such big advocates of,
Yeah.
instead of importing it. So
Yeah.
if one takes the effort go
Yeah.
and seek out, I think that
Yeah.
it's really it makes a big difference.
Of course.
And
Absolutely.
also to define your market, because do you want to be like a very mass brand, or is this what you want to work within? I think those factors also
Yeah.
important.
So, it was like, I'll give you an example. Somebody, I won't name the company, but a large company who's been in the confectionery space reached out to me to say that, will you create, a line of products for us? And I'm like, very happy to do it, but will you buy vanilla pots? Will you buy chocolate, which I want? Will you buy, will you not subject me to using essences? Will I be able to do all of that? Only if I can, then I will create. Otherwise, I will not, because I don't want my name to be attached to
Mm.
anything that does not resonate what
Yes.
the kind of work that I want to create. So I think so you'll lose some and you'll win some. But I think that you've got to hold on to what you believe in.
Yeah, which brings me to my last question. I've seen that you stick to a certain way of working. Like, for example, you had decided to work out of your own premises, apart from the
Yeah,
one or two restaurant associations you
yeah,
did, rather than having a retail front of your
yeah,
own. And this is not because of pandemic, even before. Or
yeah,
you've defined yourself of being so far, at least in the sweet space and
yeah,
not the savory.
Yeah.
baking thing, though I'm hoping someday you would. So, is this a conscious call, and do you see yourself expanding in the future? Which is the point at which you feel that people should think, okay, now I can move and sort of expand the horizon?
Uh, Um, in a city like Bombay, honestly, Kalyan, I think the retail costs are formidable. I mean, they're just something that, no matter how many Excel sheets I create, okay, they just do not make that business sense. I would love to have a cafe, okay, where I can do savory bakes as well as where I can do the bakes that I want. I'd love to do it. But I mean, the math of it so far hasn't added up in my head. Also, I think the pandemic has changed everything all
Yes,
over again.
yes, yes.
Yeah, so I think there's going to be a huge shift towards the movement online, and I think now I will focus on actually creating a brand that is more available digitally, okay,
Hmm.
without losing out on the experience part of it. but but I think my plans of that cafe, etc., they're there, but I think I've packed that away for a bit, because it's just does not make business sense, from that point of view. But did I want to do it? Yes, I've always wanted to do it. I think that physical touch that a consumer can have with your
Yes.
with your brand, I think that's very important, and I think that will never be, that'll never go away, and I hope to do that someday, but not 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 immediately. Yeah.
Do we see you getting into the teaching space, because you feel
Yeah.
you owe so much to the academy when you went as a student?
Yeah, I
So,
definitely will. I think I want to. I'm most definitely looking to get back into doing online classes. I did a lot of real classes. I mean live classes in my studio earlier, but I think that's changed now. So very soon I'll be back with my online classes. Yeah.
super. So
Yeah.
thanks so much, Anita. It was been a
Thank
pleasure.
you. Thank you so much. It's been my
No,
pleasure.
it's been an absolute pleasure. And I think the key takeout for me out of our entire talk is what you said about having the passion for what you do, sort of being very clear in terms of what you want to do, and not to get too waylaid by what's happening around, and to work hard. I think
Oh, very
work
hard.
hard and work very hard and very patient. And I must say this, that I see this particularly more so. I don't know if wearing your other hat, you've seen this, but among women professionals, I've like I see my wife, I see you, and
Yeah.
so many other people. I think women work a lot harder than
I
men
agree with
do.
you. I agree.
So on
I,
that note, thanks so much,
thank you. Have a
and
good evening. Have a great
and
weekend.
thank you. And I'm sure you've left so many people inspired, starting with our young neighbor downstairs who loves baking, and I'm
Okay.
sure she's
Yeah.
going to watch it and see it. Okay,
Happy.
take care, stay
Thank
safe,
you. You
all the
too.
best.
Thanks, Kalyan.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.